What is up, everybody? Welcome back to Drake's Takes, episode 5 coming at you here. Figured I would get one in before we're off to Glendale, Arizona for UFC 263 fight week. Gonna be hot down there. It is warming up where I am in Washington. So the summer is here. I was thinking about trying to do this episode outside, but it's just a whole lot less convenient to do it that way. But we're here anyways. I'm your host, Drake Riggs, of course, your resident MMA hipster here at the Body Lock, here to talk all things that maybe don't get enough love in the sport of MMA going on at this current time. It is June 4th at the time of release, June 3rd at the time of recording. June, the beginning of June. That's the time that we're in now. So here we are, you guys. Today, we're going to be talking about just a couple things here. Figured, squeeze them in, as I said, before we're off to a busy fight week. So, in my opinion, we have 3 of the very best fights, matchups in MMA happening on the horizon. One coming up a lot sooner than the others. The 3 best matchups in the sport right now, and they all happen to not be in the UFC. So we're going to be talking about those a little bit, highlight them, why they're so amazing, all that kind of thing, all that kind of stuff, yada, yada. Then after that, maybe a little bit of a mini RIZIN 28 preview we'll try and squeeze in because it'll kind of maybe incorporate there. We'll see how it plays out. RIZIN 28 coming up next week. It'll be actually starting as UFC 263 is concluding a bit there. So I'm going to be mad scrambling to try and take care of all that business. And Pat OJ and I here at the Body Lock will still be trying to provide you guys, or planning to provide you with, the intermission show, which is always good fun. And there will definitely be an intermission for the big Tokyo Dome event. And we'll make it work. We'll make it work, even though I'll be, as I said, scrambling all over the place on that day. But yep, will be fun. And then last but not least, a little bit of KSW 61 talk, since KSW is going to be happening. What is that? That is tomorrow, right? That is Saturday. That's this week. See, I'm already getting the weeks all mixed up. So yeah, that'll be tomorrow, leading into UFC Vegas 28, as the KSW shows typically do. An important one in certain ways there, and we'll get to why and all that fun stuff. KSW, always a good time. So got to give them some love here on Drake's Takes, because that's what we do. Highlight the important things going on outside of the UFC and whatnot. It's kind of the main thing, and just stuff that I want to talk about, because this is my show. So we do what we want here. Always open to suggestions, though. If you want me to highlight something, please feel free to leave your comments in the comments below, and send me messages if you would like at DrakeRiggs_ on Twitter, as you see down there. Easy to get a hold of. But anyways, you guys, let's get rolling. Let's get into it. Have a lot of energy today. Feel good. It's been a very nice Thursday, as I said at the time of recording. Starting off June, nice and strong. It's really burning out at the end of last month, but we're ready to go. Feeling good. So let's get into things. As I said, the 3 best matchups in MMA right now, period, across the board. There are 3 of them that stand out to me, and none of them happen to be in the UFC. So how do I want to share this order? All right, we'll start with, I guess, we'll just rattle them all off. 2 of them are in Bellator, one's in RIZIN. Anthony Rumble Johnson versus Vadim Nemkov coming up in the next round of the Bellator Light Heavyweight Grand Prix. Sensational. And the other Bellator fight, you already know where I'm going with this one probably. As I said, 2 of them. The featherweight title fight between Patricio Pitbull and AJ McKee. The fight we've all been wanting since before the tournament even started. We're finally getting it. They made it through the tournament. Picture perfect results here for Bellator. Gotta love that. And then last but not least, the lightweight title fight for the RIZIN vacant title. Tofiq Musayev, the tournament winner. Many people thought he was actually the champion already because of that, but it was actually just the tournament title that he received in that Grand Prix at the end of, what was that, 2019's RIZIN New Year's Eve show. I got some notes up here. So yeah, that was it. RIZIN 20 was that one when he won it all there. So got that. Tofiq taking on Roberto Satoshi de Souza, of course, one of the greatest grapplers, submission artists in the sport today. been on a roll since he got knocked out of that tournament. Man, oh man, man, oh man, we're doing it. Gonna be good. And that one's coming up first. That'll be next week. Just got announced earlier this week. It's been in the works for a little bit. Just had to sort some things out, as you do, especially in these interesting times. And they pulled it off. They managed to get the government to allow not only Tofiq, but his teammate Vugar Kerimov, who is taking on the featherweight champion Taka Saito. Maybe we'll get into that a little bit later. Both of them, obviously not from Japan, so they have to do the 2-week quarantine, all that stuff. I believe they're still currently in that quarantine period, which should be ending in a matter of days. Yeah, made it happen. So you love to see that. Satoshi is just waiting for Tofiq to get in the country for the fight to be made. Here we are. Got to love it. Fantastic fights. All three of these. Oh, just guaranteed madness in the best way possible, I think. So let's start off with the light heavyweights, I guess. Rumble versus Nemkov. Man, oh man, oh man. I was really not, I was one of the few people who wasn't as excited as everyone else for Rumble versus Romero for many, many reasons. Because to me, it seemed like the light heavyweight version of Lewis Ngannou 1, right? You got the two most powerful strikers in the division, at least on Rumble's side, and then Romero's going back up to light heavyweight. He still hits very hard. He's got knockout power. We know what he is capable of, even though he hasn't really shown it a whole lot recently. I mean, I guess if you're just going to look at the last fight, obviously, with Adesanya, but two very explosive guys, finishers of the highest degree. I don't know, just stylistically, that one it had potential to be a snoozer for me. I thought it wasn't going to be a crazy war. It was either going to be a staring contest until a flash knockout from either guy. So I'm not too bummed that we missed out on it. We'll probably see it at some point still, but I don't think people should have been as excited for that, especially when you just look at how each of them fight. More so Romero recently, and when opponents go against him that know how dangerous he is and his fantastic counter game that he does have and has won many a fight with, I think it would have made Rumble a bit more hesitant. And then, just looking at how Rumble would come back after the retirement, Romero moving up, so many little things that would have led that fight to not being great, I think. But Romero falls out for weird medical reasons, I guess. It was eye stuff or whatever. In comes Jose Augusto, who, man, oh man, you want to talk about a stock-raising performance in a loss. That guy capitalized about as good as you possibly can, and he still got knocked out. So he did. That's doing something right there. Jose Augusto comes on in, and I think that alleviates some of maybe the if there was any nerves or pressure that Rumble could have had. And for Augusto, nothing to lose. He had nothing to lose. Goes in there, potential to work his way to $1 million, and it showed. He did not seem nervous at all. Not scared of Rumble. Went in there, put up a hell of a fight, man. I mean, one of my favorite fights probably ever. That one was. That might be a bit bold, but definitely of this year. It was an amazing fight. Augusto clearly, it looked like he broke his hand. I don't remember hearing if. I'm pretty sure he did actually break it. It would. Everything leads us to believe that, and I probably saw that. Just don't remember seeing it. I don't know, but either way, obviously has the hand injury mid fight, but still nearly puts away Rumble Johnson as he's coming in, and Rumble looking sharp as attack. I don't want to say sharper than ever, but he didn't look like he missed any time. Played it patiently, was throwing a lot of nice leg kicks, wasn't really headhunting until the end when he knew he kind of had him. But yeah, almost gets caught, does get caught, almost gets finished in the first round. About to be one of the biggest upsets you'll ever see. Maybe not that you'll ever see, but clearly a big one. I say not ever because of the fact that Rumble was coming in off of that layoff, but still obviously would have been a huge one, part of the tournament, all the factors. Nobody really knew who Augusto was, and looked like he definitely belongs in the light heavyweight division, and is a guy who can beat a lot of guys. as he, put it on Rumble there early. And then a comeback from Anthony Rumble Johnson. Insanity. The guy looked great despite getting caught. Something that he'll have to definitely be careful of against Nemkov. And I think that the fact that he got that out of his system is good for him. He got that out of the way. It's something kind of new. We've never really seen, at least Rumble at light heavyweight and above his welterweight, middleweight days, be in that kind of trouble. So the fact that he weathered that, really good, especially after, the layoff. So him versus Nemkov, a guy who just beat Phil Davis in that rematch, which was a very fun fight as well. And Phil did give him some trouble later on in that fight. I did think that Phil beat him the first time. I scored it for Phil. It was very, very close. Many people, kind of pointed at the leg kicks as the decider for Nemkov in this fifth fight. Just not enough activity from Phil. I think if he would have been a bit more aggressive, he could have done a little bit better. But of course, Nemkov would have still chewed him up, I think, a bit more. The problem with Phil Davis, despite still being one of the best light heavyweights in the world and able to beat practically everybody not named Nemkov or, Ryan Bader, for example, he's one of those wrestlers, elite level wrestlers, who has fallen in love with his striking so much that he just doesn't wrestle at all anymore. Like what he attempted one takedown maybe in that fight, and then he didn't even really attempt in the first fight either that I'm remembering. Just very upsetting to see as somebody who has always been a big supporter of Mr. Wonderful and, you know, touting him as giving him more respect than people might give him, because I think he deserves it when you look at the resume and career he's put together. Yeah, it might not be the most exciting for many to see, but that's, because he's gotten away from his wrestling, I think, which is very, very dominant. But yeah, Nemkov looked like a champ out there, lasted the full 5 rounds. That's another thing. Good for him to get that out of his system. Rumble did not have to go through that, so that'll be interesting as that fight goes on longer and longer. But the precision, speed, still the power that he packs with all those attributes that Nemkov has, my goodness. And you mix that with Rumble, who, as I said, still looked very sharp, technique on point, adding maybe some new elements to his game with the leg kick approach there. I know we've seen him throw plenty of head kicks in the past, and against Phil Davis, for example, that one stands out to me as one where he was landing some, and clearly extremely powerful still. Oh, that fight is just, it's crazy. That's a finals fight, but we're getting it here in the next round for the title. I love it. I think that is going to be fantastic. I forgot to turn off my volume. Apologies, everybody. Let's get that out of the way. But yeah, and it's fresh too. That's one of the big things for me is like, I love fresh matchups. And of course, in this tournament, all of them for Rumble would have been fresh except for Davis and Bader, right? Unless I'm forgetting somebody. Machida, he didn't fight Machida. Yeah, that's right. It would just been them two. So as long as he came out, and I guess Romero too would have been there too. But another guy, Romero, is a guy who has completely abandoned his wrestling, which if he would have implemented that, he could very well be the UFC champion right now, maybe. Who knows? But he probably and arguably still should have won that fight without Adesanya, depending on how you saw it. But him and Phil Davis, elite wrestlers that have just forgotten it. But that's besides the point. Nemkov versus Johnson. Anything can happen in that one. Boy, oh boy, it's going to be something. And I cannot wait for it. Whenever that happens, it is one that you just cannot miss. So look for that one, you guys. And then obviously Patricio Pitbull and AJ McKee. Not much really needs to be said about that, right? The story wrote itself beautifully. Thank you, MMA gods. Now don't do something to where this never happens. like one of them gets hurt and then Bellator still makes one of them fight and they lose to the replacement. That's how that would cancel this out. Don't do that, Bellator. You need to make this fight happen. It is too good. It is too perfect for the finals, for the winning streaks. it is just amazing how this is lined up. It's beautiful. You love to see it. Um, of course, AJ McKee 17-0. And what, all of those fights are in Bellator or something crazy? Like, that's always, yeah, his entire career has been in Bellator. Like, they always mention that. And I'm like, there's no way that was actually the case. I always forget that he's always been a Bellator guy. You want to talk about homegrown star, definition of it. A 17-fight Bellator career and not a single loss. Madness. The guy is something else. And then Patricio Pitbull, obviously one of the greatest fighters of all time, double champion, the greatest Bellator fighter of all time. Many, 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 many accolades to this man's name, and still somehow pretty underappreciated. I think, even though I think at this stage we're starting to collectively as a community give him much more of the respect that he deserves. And right now, at 33 years old, he is better than ever. Looking just pretty much impossible to beat. You know, you look at that Emmanuel Sanchez fight, which I remember, I think, talking about it on Drake's Takes One, maybe. A fight that really should have been closer than it was. Emmanuel Sanchez really turned things around, looked sensational since their first fight, which, he didn't look too bad in either. But that's just the level that Pitbull jumped to after that. They both went up. They both leveled up since the first fight. But holy shit, Pitbull took his level even higher. And he has showed that about as good as you could ask him to. So, yeah, you meet that with AJ McKee, who can do it all as well. You've seen him, get 8-second knockouts over Georgi Karahanyan. I was there for that one. And I'll tell you what, I actually missed that. I missed that because I was cage side, but it was so fast, right? The first 8 seconds, I looked away for some reason. I might have looked at my computer, whatever I was doing, completely missed it. I was like, the fight's over? Okay. Didn't expect that to happen. Wow. All right. The guy just continued to cement his legitimacy after that and on that night, finishing Derek Campos with the armbar afterward, and then Darian Caldwell with the McKeeatine, as people have since labeled it, one of the submission of 2020 contenders. He is dangerous everywhere, absolutely everywhere. When you meet the kind of youth and rising potential that he still has to be even better than what he's shown us already is something else. But again, Pitbull's a guy who been there, done that, seen it all. McKee has seen a lot, despite being 26 years old, obviously 17 fights and in one of the best promotions in the world. But are there levels to this still? Is McKee reached that level that Patricio has gotten to, or close enough to close the gap? That's the question. That's why it's so exciting. The finals, $1 million on the line, the title on the line. It's too good. It's too good to be true in a sport where we've lost some high profile fights and one between two of the promotion's biggest homemade stars, right? Homegrown, homemade, however you want to call it. It's perfect for them. They should be over the moon about this. Do everything they can to have this be their biggest fight ever. Which I don't know if I would say it's the biggest fight ever for Bellator. Rory and Musashi was clearly a very big fight to put together, but in terms of Bellator fighters, and I mean a Chandler Alvarez too as well, which is more along the line of where I'm going at right now. In terms of Bellator boys, the Bellator, these guys are Bellator blood and blood, through and through. All the experience and time that they've had in that cage. In that regard, it's the biggest fight, undeniably, everything considered. So put it on a stacked card, as the main event. Make this the biggest deal you possibly can. That's what they should do for a matchup like this. You don't get this. You just don't get it all that often. Even in the UFC, when do you see promotional veterans like this that are at the heights of their careers? And like I said, McKee isn't probably not even there yet. It's still at 26. You just don't see it happen all too often. You know, people are Adesanya and Costa was the first time undefeated fighters had met in a title fight. Pretty nuts. Or no, well, Rousey and McMahon was. There you go. I know these things, but for the men, maybe those two fights anyway. So either way, both those guys did have less octagon time as well. So just crazy how it lines up. Can't wait for that one. No dates or ideas on either of those fights just yet, but we do know when the lightweight title for RIZIN is going to have its new owner next Saturday night, Sunday morning, depending on where you are in the world. That's me going off on my time, Sunday morning there. June 13th. Let me look at the calendar. Yes, June 13th for mostly everybody. RIZIN 28 hosting the lightweight championship fight between the tournament winner, as I mentioned, Tofiq Musayev and Roberto Satoshi de Souza. Oh man, I think it's only gotten better with the time between it. So we can thank the pandemic in MMA scenarios for that, because the fight was started to get steam, obviously, after Satoshi rebounded off his loss to Johnny Case, which was, just kind of, it was a quick one, was 75 seconds on at RIZIN 20. Was it at RIZIN 20? Let me be correct there. No, RIZIN 19 before that, so he didn't make it to the New Year's Eve show where they had the two fights. But he got starched a little bit by Johnny Case, just kind of bad circumstances. Leading into that one, said he wasn't quite there, not making excuses, but just one of those nights, one of those off nights a bit. And then he rebounds against Yusuke Yauchi at RIZIN 22 in August of last year. Absolutely dominates Yauchi on the ground, gets him down and just pulverizes him, ground and pound. And that's the crazy thing about Satoshi too, is that guy is a wizard on the ground, which I will get to with the fight afterward. Wizard on the ground, but he's only got one submission in RIZIN. He's been pounding people out. He's been pounding them out brutally. He is a finisher of all, a finisher, the finisher of finishers. I don't know what you want to call him there, but has no decisions on his record whatsoever. And after the Yauchi win, it was like, all right, he dominated Yauchi, made it look like they shouldn't even have been in there together, which they honestly shouldn't have. Yauchi's been on a bit of a skid, and obviously that enhanced it. But after that, we're like, all right, Satoshi versus Tofiq, sign me up. And then we got to wait a little bit because of the pandemic situation, plus the fact that Tofiq had to go serve the Azerbaijan army during the conflicts and whatnot that was happening over there. And then Kazuki Tokodome comes into the picture, who's been all over the place, former UFC veteran, one championship veteran, Pancrase, I believe. He's been pretty much everywhere in MMA. Comes in, takes on Satoshi at RIZIN 27 in earlier this year. What was that, 3 months ago? Gets a triangle choke in 1 minute and 44 seconds. That was his first submission in RIZIN. Of course, he has many submissions prior to coming to RIZIN, but his first one in RIZIN. Goodness gracious. If you guys didn't see this fight, obviously not very long, go look at it. Look at both these fights. Watch his whole career, because his fights end rather quickly. Never seen the third round in RIZIN. And he's just so fun to watch. A killer, whether it's with striking, ground and pound, or submissions, you name it. And the way that he set up that triangle against Tokodome, a guy who I believe had only been finished by submission once before this, and typically a very tough guy to finish in Tokodome. It was buttery smooth. Like, you want to see what kind of grappler you're working with here. and Satoshi, that fight is the perfect example, and one that after that we're like, all right, no more dilly dallying. We need that Tofiq fight pronto, pronto. Give it to me now, now. Take all my money, and we're getting it. Tofiq coming in, obviously off a layoff, didn't fight at all last year, but prior to that, had the two fights on one night. Um, at RIZIN 20 when he took out Johnny Case, who was the only person to beat Satoshi. Kind of ran through Johnny Case, looked brilliant there, and then put it on Patricio Pitbull, the Pitbull brother, right? So we got a little bit of a combo deal here in terms of coming full circle with the fights. But yeah, Tofiq Musayev has undeniably established himself as one of the very best lightweights in the world, and Satoshi right there on his way to doing the same. If he beats Tofiq, then obviously I think we can firmly say that. It's still kind of got to see how he does in this one, because the matchup here is sensational, and Tofiq on a 14 fight win streak. Every shot that the man throws is just loaded with evil. The intentions behind it, the power that he possesses as a lightweight, everything hurts. And you can hear it so much better too in those quiet arenas over there in Japan. So Tofiq is so fun to watch. Obviously has very good grappling skills as well, if you've seen him, which I feel like he showed off a little bit more in his first so many fights in RIZIN. Darren Cruikshank, of course, and then Damian Brown right after that. And his time in WFCA as well. But very solid striker. And Satoshi, I think, can hang on the feet, can do some damage. He's, as I said, he's very lethal everywhere. But if he gets Tofiq on the ground, that's where the fight is the most exciting, because Tofiq is a solid grappler as well. It's just different, right? The jiu-jitsu elements and cerebralness. Is that a word? Cerebral. The cerebral approach that Satoshi has with his grappling and ground and pound is just, it might be unmatched right now. The combination that he has, just from what we've seen, that guy is a finisher on the ground. Like, if you can survive it, good luck, man. And if anybody can, it's Tofiq, but we'll see. We will see. And that's why it is so exciting. I cannot wait. I don't know who I'm picking yet. It's going to be good, though. It is going to be good. I like that Satoshi's been more active, but I feel like Tofiq is one of those guys where it won't matter for him, and he's dying to get back in there as well. So this is one of the best fights that can be made in the sport right now. You guys do not miss it next week. RIZIN 28 lightweight title will be decided. Both of these guys are perfect for the promotion, perfect stars in the making, just in the lightweight division worldwide right now. They're both excellent fighters, and you should watch really any of their fights. And if you haven't seen much of them, I think most of their fights should be on YouTube, especially the recent ones for Satoshi. So definitely do your homework, because it'll get you real pumped up. And what was I going to add? Oh yeah, new rules. All fights now, which I'm sure this one would have been, but all RIZIN fights now will have elbows allowed. No exceptions, no options whatsoever, and all angles. So no silly 12-6 nonsense. We get the most violence that we could possibly ask for. It is beautiful, and Vaseline applied as well, so there will be no nasty cut stoppages or silliness with that either, which we hope anyway. That's kind of the goal, clearly. So cannot wait to see how it shakes out. Elbow violence and RIZIN with soccer kicks, stomps. You can't go wrong. You can't go wrong in this fight. But I think that perfectly transitions a bit to a little bit of a mini preview for the event. I didn't want to go super in depth with it, but I just wanted to touch on a couple of fights, and of course the bantamweight tournament, which I did already talk about when things were decided, the lineup for the fights, the first 8 open round bouts. But as mentioned, there is some other big important action going on there. Terrible phrasing. I apologize. But the two other big fights on the card outside of the bantamweight tournament bouts, of course, undeniably, you got Mikuru Asakura, recent featherweight title challenger, taking on clever Koike Herbst, who is pretty much featherweight Satoshi De Souza. A little bit. I mean, they train together, bonsai teammates, of course. But yeah. And then the other featherweight fight, the featherweight champ, Yutaka Saito, is back, not defending his title against Vugar Karamov, who is Tofiq's teammate. So, a little bit of interesting connections here. And it's weird because we expected, I think, Saito versus Mikuru 2 to be probably an instant rematch, but Yutaka's nose was pretty jacked up from that one, needed some time to heal. Mikuru goes on to take on Satoshi Yamasu in his rebound fight. What was that? That was at RIZIN 26. That was on New Year's, right? Funny how I'm saying right. I'm asking you guys, but this isn't live. We're not live, so why does it matter? But Mikuru rebounds anyway. Then after that, we're like, all right, so there you go. He beat Yamasu, good win, got a finish there, looked great. So let's do the rematch, right? Nope. Instead, he's getting the new guy on the block, or the guy, at least in terms of RIZIN. Obviously, Kleber Koike has had a hell of a career to this point. Former KSW champion, teammate of Satoshi's, obviously, as I mentioned. This is clearly the number one contender fight, but the champ's also going to be fighting another top contender in Karamov. And really, Karamov getting a title shot isn't unjustifiable. He's on a fantastic winning streak himself. How many we got here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That's an 11 fight winning streak. And yes, only one fight in RIZIN was Kyle Agwan, the husband of Miyu Yamamoto. But still, he's on a roll right now and doing just fine. Hasn't his fight was last year. That Agwan fight was February of 2020, before world shut down, kind of right around when it did, actually. So I don't see why not make this fight a title fight. In terms of rounds, it doesn't matter, unfortunately. But risky one for Saito to take. And especially when it's like, this is a little bit of an unofficial tournament, right? Where we know for a fact that Saito beating Karamov leads to him versus the winner of Asakura and Koike. No bones about it. But then, what if Karamov gets the upset? Then the winner of the other fight has to wait, because Karamov then needs to fight for the title, similar to Kai Asakura versus Kyoji Horiguchi. That's the problem with these non-title fights in RIZIN, which it generally has worked out for him. Don't get me wrong, but I don't get it. If that's one gripe that I will have with RIZIN, and with the other one being title fights not being 5 rounds, which the reason for that is TV stuff, which I've talked about with Shingo on Broad Horizon. Shameless plug. I don't remember which episode that was. Maybe episode 1 or 2 if you want to go check on my YouTube channel, youtube.com/DrakeRiggs, miaminews.com as well. Just got to get it out of the way. It's my show. I could say what I want. But yes, non-title fights for champs, especially in a case where you don't need to do that. You could have had Saito take on either of those guys. Obviously, Mikuru seemed like the right one, but Koike would have been a fresh matchup and a very good matchup. But we still get 2 fun fights out of it, so can't complain too much. And in terms of Mikuru versus Koike, I'm very excited for that one as well. Koike, like Satoshi, is an absolute wizard on the ground. These guys are legitimately 2 of the best. You look back at Koike's first 2 RIZIN wins. I didn't open the tab yet. Here it is. Of course, he fought on the same card as Satoshi in his last fight, which was the RIZIN 27. 3 months ago when he submitted Majima, and before that, got a Darce choke over Kyle Agwan, who Karamov also beat. But first man to submit him, Darce choke was tight, knew it as soon as he latched it on. Game over. Guy's an assassin, and then triangle choke over Majima, who actually was willing to go to the ground with him, which was clearly a stupid idea because this man is pretty much a human snake. You give him something to take home, he's going to take it home. So don't go to the ground with him. Mikuru Asakura is not going to go to the ground with him. He doesn't like to go to the ground generally anyway. And as we learned from Mikuru's fight with Satoshi, not with Satoshi, Mikuru versus Saito, we didn't even learn it from that fight, but we knew if you make Mikuru uncomfortable, make him not fight his fights, dictate the pace, that's when he struggles a bit. So typically to do that, you're going to need to have some striking that can match his. Saito, able to do that. A very capable striker, obviously. Seen how the fight played out. And yet again, it was still very close, though. Some people think that Mikuru should have won that. Koike, unfortunately, I don't think his striking will be good enough to kind of replicate that. As we saw in the Agwan fight, I think he was, not struggling a bit, but we saw that wasn't I don't know. It wasn't spectacular or anything, right? We know what he's good at. But that doesn't mean that he can't get the fight to the ground still. He can definitely work his way in, just has to survive some bombs, some shots from Mikuru, because Mikuru does hit very hard. He's a finisher as well. If you let him be. But if he gets a hold of you, if Koike gets a hold of you, which he very well could, that's where it gets the most interesting. Again, because on the ground with that guy, you're pretty much done. And we've never seen Mikuru against a grappler of this caliber, as there's not many of the caliber of Koike. So can't wait to see how that plays out. Winner undeniably gets the featherweight title shot. They might have to wait depending on how Saito versus Karamov goes, which it's a big risk. It's a big risk for Saito. I honestly think that if Karamov employs a grappling heavy approach in that fight, just kind of tries to grind him out, he could very well pull off the upset, take out the champ in his first fight after becoming champ. But on the feet, he does have a chance as well. But I think I like Saito's aggression and just the ability he has to make people uncomfortable, as we saw against Asakura. But I just don't understand the non-title fight thing. I mean, I guess you get to keep it and readjust if you do lose. So there's that aspect to it for him. So he's got that going on, but a little bit of an unofficial mini featherweight tournament there, which is cool. But we do have a real and official bantamweight tournament, which kicks off at this event as well. First 4 fights taking place at RIZIN 28, with 29 coming up 2 weeks after on June. Calendar closed for some reason. June 27th. So, 2 weeks later, where the other 4 will go down. But before that, we have Kai Asakura, brother of Mikuru, former bantamweight champ, as also mentioned during the show, taking on Shuto Watanabe. Shintaro Ishiwatari versus Naoki Inoue, Yuki Mitoya versus Ryo Okada, Hiromasa Ogikubo, and Takeshi Kasugai. Man, oh man, those are some 4 good ones. And as you guys know, I don't like to be just a regular, prediction type show or anything like that. We're just kind of, we're intentionally trying to be unique around here at Drake's Takes. That's why the whole hipster aspect is there. So we know the school of self-awareness is in session, ladies and gentlemen. I feel gross for using that reference, but here we are. So let's, instead of making a prediction or anything, let's look at which fight is most likely to be the best, that's a goddamn hard thing to predict for this batch of 4 fights here, is obviously Hiromasa. him by himself against anybody is generally pretty fun. Kasugai could bring that out of him. I believe that this is a rematch, if I'm remembering correctly from the discussion that I had. Was it last week with Shingo and John over on the SCMP channel? Shameless plug over there as well. So that's an interesting element. Yuki Batoya versus Ryo Okada, kind of a dark horse pick there is Okada to maybe, at least make a run in this tournament. And then Yuki, consummate veteran who really only loses to people that he should lose to. At least I would say so. When you look at his career, beats about everybody who's not, kind of one of those guys. So yeah, you know what I mean? You have to kind of look at his record to understand what I'm saying. But Yuki Mitoya, definitely a veteran, definitely very capable of at least winning 2 fights, I think, in this tournament. I don't think he'll win the whole thing, though. Ishiwatari versus Naoki. Naoki very well could and should be getting the next title shot without having to go through this tournament, but here we are, and he single-handedly picked out Ishiwatari when given the opportunity. Ishiwatari last fought with Hiromasa in that classic, instant classic at RIZIN 20, late fight of the year contender. Absolute banger. Didn't come out on top, but still looked great. He's feeling healthy in this one. Going into this one, man, with a big chance to maybe take out the young gun who is on fire right now. You want to talk about another guy who is on a roll, Naoki Inoue, could be your winner of this tournament. Definitely should be one of the favorites, along with the former champ looking to rebound, Kai Asakura. Kai Asakura, I mean, he's always fun. I don't need to say anything more. But he's taking on Shuto Watanabe, who big possibility to upset. When you look at the stylistic clash, Kai Asakura does have pretty good takedown defense, but Shuto, little bit of underestimated, underappreciated grappler, I think we could probably say, after the loss that he had before his win against Takumi Tamaru in his last fight, where Takumi really kind of probably should have won that fight. Got on his back in the first round, but then just didn't capitalize and ended up completely reversing position in the second round and getting choked out. Watanabe never out of it on the ground. And, if he gets Asakura down again, there's a lot of matchups like this. I feel like I'm repeating myself, but that's where he has his best chance. And it gets very interesting, gets intriguing a bit. But of course, Kai Asakura, I think, is going to have a little extra motivation to try and prove himself again after believing he shouldn't even be in this tournament and, wanting that trilogy fight with Kyoji Horiguchi, which who doesn't want to see that? So for me, which fight will be the best, most likely to be the best out of these 4? It's hard for me not to go with Naoki versus Shintaro. With everything considered in that one, I feel like that's the easy pick. And, because of the element of surprise possibility from Shuto against Kai, I like that as the second one. And yes, I know that I'm going with the 2 fights that have both of the favorites to win this whole tournament in it, but that's why they're the favorites, right? And I guess that actually doesn't make sense, because wouldn't it be you would think the more competitive ones on paper, which I think Naoki and Shintaro, it's probably one of Naoki's tougher opponents that he could face, especially in the first round. But I think his line of thinking is to get it out of the way now, get this vet out of the way. Tough, durable guy. Always in exciting fights. If I could beat him right in the first round, don't have to worry about him later, kind of thing. So we'll see. But yeah, I don't know. I think I got to go with one of those. I don't care. I'm going Shintaro versus Naoki. That's going to be the best of the 4. Maybe not the best fight of the night, because as I said, it's got to be that lightweight title fight. I'm just amped up for that. So happy that they were able to make it happen, getting Tofiq into the country, as well as Karimov, even though that stuff is all weird there, right? So there you go. RIZIN 28, along with the best fights that the MMA gods could provide us with right now. And yes, only one of those, I guess 2 of those are official, right? We know that Nemkov and no, they're all official. I mean, the tournament fights, right? Those are all these fights are going to happen. God damn it. Knock on wood. If I jinx these, you guys, please come after me, because I'll be mad at myself as well. So now I kind of regret this. So I apologize for ruining all the fun. Shame. Big shame. All right, let's close things out, you guys. 45 minutes down. Ooh, longer than I expected to go for this, for just these three topics. But there we go. A lot of energy, as I said. So feeling good, good fun. Hope you've enjoyed so far. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe. Tell your friends if they're into MMA and want to learn a little bit more about the outside things going on outside of the UFC and that are less mainstream. Always appreciate spreading the love for the fighters and the promotions rather than, myself. It ain't about me. But to close things out this week, tomorrow's action, this week's action, KSW 61. KSW is back. KSW bringing fans back in Poland, not full capacity, but the first show back with fans for them. You love to see it. We're getting back to normal. It's nice. It is nice to see. And, good for them putting on a show. Just being able to put on shows the way that they have before. I loved kind of the dungeon vibes that we were getting with some of those. It was cool as hell, like a mansion basement in some Hostel movie. Like if any of you have seen, what is it, like Hostel 3 or 2, there was one of the venues that they used looked just like in one of those movies, unless I'm completely mixing it up. But yeah, Hostel 2 and 3 were actually terrible, fucking not good movies, but Hostel 1 was all right though. Yeah, gross though. Those are definitely horror films. That's what they are. So anyway, KSW, you guys. Yes. And speaking of a horror film come to life, there we go. Perfect way to tie it in. Mariusz Pudzianowski is going to be headlining the event, because who else would be headlining the first event with fans back? I don't know, Khalidov maybe. That'd be a good pick. But I love this event specifically for the title of it, KSW 61, to fight or not to fight. That is beautiful stuff there. And Mariusz Pudzianowski, of course, taking on Łukasz Żurkowski in the main event. In terms of a matchup and that kind of thing, I think KSW maybe making this specifically for the feel and the vibe of what we're getting, celebrating fans coming back with a Pudzianowski crushing, because no disrespect to Żurkowski, but the guy is a light heavyweight. At least his last fight was at light heavyweight. And Pudzianowski, as we know, is an absolute behemoth of a man. And yes, I said it, behemoth, intentionally. If that's how you pronounce it, behemoth or not, it is fun to say it that way. Of course, Pudzianowski was supposed to take on Bombardier in his last fight, but man, we lost out on it during fight day, and in came a dude. And no disrespect to that dude, but he was just a dude. As we saw, Pudzianowski crushed him in about roughly a minute after a little bit of a fence grab, a little bit of should have been a point deduction there, but that's okay. Didn't matter. He would have still smashed the guy anyways. Once he got on top of him, pretty much turtle mode. Fight was over. So easy day at work for Pudzianowski after missing out on what would have been amazing. And interestingly enough, man, just the career of Pudzianowski by itself is fascinating to me. But KSW this week, they reposted his very first fight, his debut, which I don't remember ever seeing that, but I want to bring it up because it was so interesting to me to see the approach that this former bodybuilder turned MMA fighter, who's actually turned out to be, decent. Obviously, he's not the best in the world or anything, but he's a legitimate fighter. Pudzianowski is at this point. 20 fights. This is going to be his 22nd, I believe, 22nd or 3rd. In his debut, he pretty much bull rushes the dude, another dude. The guy was probably a dude. That's going to be the new thing, right? I don't like the word tomato cans, anything. These are dudes. So Pudzianowski bull rushes the guy with leg kicks, puts everything into these leg kicks, chops the dude down, and in about a minute again, another quick victory for him. But it was just insane to see somebody of that size, 260 plus, ran at the man and leg kicked him repeatedly until he went down, which he did. And then he pounded him out on the ground. It was absurd. It was one of the most ridiculous things I've ever seen. Like, he didn't throw any punches on the feet. I mean, he threw a couple, but like his main plan of attack was full power leg kicks. It was incredible. If you haven't seen it, check it out. It's on the KSW Twitter page and probably their YouTube as well. But you can't not love that. It's just beautiful madness. And that's what you get with KSW and some Pudzianowski. So it'll be fun. Perfect guy to headline this event, as I said. And, there are some other fantastic fights, as there generally are with KSW. In the co-main event, Saladin Parnasse is back, and this guy is a very, very good, talented fighter out of France. Looking to rebound, off of his first career loss. He was a very solid 14-0 going into his fight with Daniel Torres. But got put away under 2 minutes at KSW 58 in the main event of that one at the beginning of this year. Didn't see that coming, so he lost that fight, and now he's looking to rebound, see how he comes back from that one. Guy is just 23 years old, hell of a lot of experience, and under a very big promotion, especially in Europe, like KSW, the premier promotion in Europe, I would say. Parnasse has still a very bright future ahead of him, but this is what we see. How much better will he potentially get after that loss? Or how much better will he potentially be, show especially rebounding. So looking forward to that one as well, as he takes on, Philippe Pejic. KSW names, gotta love them. Poland names and whatnot. Yeah, and then of course PM's back. Przemysław Mishala. There we go. Przemysław Mishala. There we are. I was proud of myself for pronouncing that one last time. And Damian Stasiak, UFC veteran, another guy who's competing. And this PM fight, he's actually taking on Ivan Urslan. So he just fought Narkun. It's Narkun's last victory title defense. So that's a pretty interesting fight, actually, as I look through the card here. Mikhail Kita, Darko Stozic, another one with Stozic was in the UFC, I believe, but either way, those are recognizable names. Karolina Ovčáč is back, taking on Monika Kushnik. Karolina, somebody I got to talk to before her last fight with Justina Haba, which was her first loss, unfortunately, but Justina Haba is a very good talent, flyweight prospect as well. So no shame in that one. They're both still very young. 3-1 now is Ovčáč, and boxing background, but has shown off her grappling tremendously in her fights to this point so far, and taking on Kushnic in catchweight of 118. Normally flyweight is Ovčáč, but she's trying to drop down to strawweight now, I believe. Clearly said that was kind of the plan in the pre-fight video packages from what I'd seen. And yeah, it should be a fight that Karolina will be able to rebound on as well, especially if she gets it to the ground. But yeah, just another person you want to talk about, star in the making, fantastic personality. She used to be a journalist, kind of, reporter, TV personality, kind of like, people try to aspire to be, and then got into actually being a fighter again. If I remember her story correctly, I'll have to go back and watch my own interview. But if you guys want to check that out and hear a little bit more about her, it's very cool to hear her story. I think ended up going to Mexico on a reality show, like a bunch of crazy shit. Karolina Ovčáč, that is OWCZARZ. Find that on my YouTube channel, youtube.com/DrakeRiggs. Another shameless plug. But yeah, very great personality, star in the making, very good prospects still. I think KSW knows what they got in her. And yeah, another person looking to rebound. So that'll be a fun one. I think, I believe that's going to open the entire card, but we will find out on Saturday. Tomorrow, KSW 61 fans are back. Everyone's looking forward to that, as they should be. Pujanowski fun, Parnasse fun, and many, many more, you guys. So, think that'll about do it. Covered the bases a lot better than I planned to. Just kind of go into these things, winging it for the most part, with some notes on the topics. But hey, it's good fun. Hope you enjoyed. Thoughts, comments, concerns, always feel free to drop them below. Appreciate you guys so much for taking the time. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the Body Lock for all the fantastic content coming at you. We got the Fight Business Podcast, Drake's Takes, and working on plenty of other exciting things in the works for you guys to enjoy, get you that content. So appreciate it greatly, you guys, for tuning in. This has been Drake's Takes. I am Drake Riggs. I will see you next time.